you for joining the Attivo Network's What's Lurking in Your Network webinar. Today I'm joined by host Tushar Kothari, who is the Attivo CEO, along with special guest Ken Baylor, who is a renowned CISO in the industry. Today's discussion topics will cover not only what the challenges in the threat detection landscape are, but how reconnaissance and stolen credential attacks work, how attackers are getting into your network, and how real-time threat detection techniques using deception can help you in real time quickly identify and find these threats. Additionally, we'll cover some of the forensics that are required to not only detect what's in your network, but to work with prevention systems to shut down attacks that are currently happening and also prevent future attacks. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is to turn this over to Ken to launch us into the topics of the webinar. There you go, Ken.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So we're going to cover some of the threat detection challenges of today. So the first thing to talk about is that breaches are occurring. We're getting 50-plus attacks reported monthly and are becoming more frequent and malicious. And that would be a nice statistic, but the real fact of it is they're becoming much, much more impactful. Just to bring up sort of three big changes that have been happening. The first one is the OPM hack. So while you can go off and get your credit monitoring, and back in the old days that may have been sufficient, also you can change your social security number, you can change your background history, all that stuff's been breached. The second one, of course, is going for the year of credit monitoring. To know the kind of effect of the Ashley Madison breach is you now get to see your kids only on the weekend. So we're talking about much more impactful breaches. And the third thing that happened this week is the FTC. There's been a federal appeals court ruling saying the FTC can now put impactful enforcement on companies that have had breaches. So you're dealing with literally tens or 50s or hundreds of millions of dollars over their 20-year consent orders. So in the last couple of weeks, you've seen major, major changes really in the impact of breaches. Now, they're expensive. This is the Panama number of $3.8 million. But when you're really bringing in the FTC, you're bringing in the Ashley Madisons, you're bringing in the massive impact on people, those numbers are kind of meaningless now. They're really going to be 10, 15 million plus. And the Tier 1 security providers aren't providing reliable solutions. No great surprise there. They focused on perimeter security. They focused on point solutions that generally stop things from coming in the first place, but with highly polymorphic viruses, the APT methodology, a lot of this stuff just doesn't work. It's been well known for quite a while. But it's about time we started calling it out and figuring out what to do about it, especially when the breaches are becoming more impactful. And the detection management is failing. Even when you go off and you put in all of your tools, you put in your SIM, you're ending up with millions and millions of false positives every day. It just becomes a worthless exercise. And now our general approach has been, let's go and do the big data approach to try and figure out this mess and try and figure out what's real. Well, why don't we just kind of go back to basics and try and figure out what's a smart way of detecting things with very low false positives. So inside the news, we've got 90% of organizations have suffered a security breach. And we use breach in the term of not they have a data security incident, but there's actually PII that they have to disclose. And we're looking at things like Massachusetts 201 and California 1386. This is something that there's been a lot of information that organizations really have to go out there and disclose. Data breaches are up 2% without counting Ashley Madison, which is, I think, a game changer. And the massive federal government data breach, or OPM, has grown to shockingly large proportions. And White House cybersecurity czar is saying, well, threat awareness has improved, but protection hasn't. So that's just some of the headlines, but there's a whole lot more. Bottom line is things are getting a lot worse, and even our methodology on how we're finding solutions is not heading in the right direction. So looking at a different paradigm, we assume something's going to get in. We don't know how. Maybe it's going to be through our BYOD. Maybe it's going to be our VPN tunnel with our Amazon cloud. Maybe it's going to be an application attack. But just assume something gets in there. What do you do about it? Well, you have to assume that your perimeter security doesn't work anymore. And you need to figure out what's actually going on inside your network. That's a very important thing. And the idea of, well, we could listen in every single packet that goes across the network, it doesn't scale, and it has major privacy implications. So really trying to figure out, how can I find out what's malicious that's on my network? So that's threat intelligence is critical to know what the attackers are doing, and you have to be able to figure out what they're doing and shut them down when they try and do it. So you're really looking at You don't want to shut down your business, you want to shut down your attacker. So that requires intelligent knowledge of what they do, or a very interesting place to put out there, sort of a bear trap, that when they fall into it, you know who they are and what's going on. So bots, as in botnets and APTs, are all over the place. And when we're referring to APTs, we're really referring to the methodologies. We're talking about some sort of remote access tool and people staying on your network for a long period of time. What's a long period of time? Well, in Ashley Madison, they were looking at between 3 and 4 years. So we've heard statistics before of 180 days is how long they're generally on your network before you know about it. I think the numbers now are even larger and larger, and you're talking about multiple backdoors. So when you've got HTTPS and you've got this awesome network security, you've got your perimeter, you've got your VLANs, that just gets everything down from wherever it is to bypass all your security methods, and now it's affected your machine. That's where we're seeing great pieces of malware like Zeus, Citadel, and Dire. Zero-day exploits coming in through the network, basically attacking generally applications and getting through there. But with a lot of the good quality malware that runs on Ring 3, which is the user level, you don't even need this stuff. Stolen employee credentials are very effective because a lot of the times your information's in the cloud. So once they have your information, they can go in and infect through your cloud. They'll maybe log in as a junior person of your company. Then it can send an email to somebody that's important to get either a phishing attack, a privilege escalation attack. Endpoint and BYOD infections. Well, BYOD is where you take your whole home machine infected with all the fun malware, bring it back into your secure network, and just go right across your normal protections. And then spear phishing, which is generally used with compromised attacks or compromised credentials to impersonate somebody else. So the big thing about spear phishing is credibility. And if you've been looking at the spear phishing quality in the last 3 to 5 years, it's gone really, really impressively across a good trajectory. So attack sequence, there's generally they go off and this is the classical method of when you want to attack a company. You figure out who you're going after, you figure out what their IP addresses are, you figure out what devices they have on there through various methods of footprinting. Then you try and figure out, okay, it seems that they're using the following stacks of information that you can pick out which piece of malware will be quite effective. You get through your breakthrough. One of the standard breakthroughs we're seeing now is not the good old-fashioned, I'll hammer on your front doors until I get in there. It's generally spear phishing, social engineering, some method of getting in using malware. And then you escalate out your privileges once you're in. You do some reconnaissance. You want to see what else is around. That's the idea of mapping in through the networks. And the Ashley Madison one was very effective because they went through every single level of the network. They went through personal emails, corporate emails, outsourced emails. They went through internal networks. They went through Git repositories and downloaded all the source code. They went onto the production MySQL servers and downloaded all the databases. They went in and got the credit card files. They went in and even got the risk remediation files from the InfoSec person. We're talking about that reconnaissance, expansion of access, taking your time and just absolutely robbing every single thing. Something very similar happened in the Sony hack as well. So, example, what happens when you put sort of what's kind of going on in your network? A lot of the complications come from the last few years. We've seen an explosion on things like VMware Fusion and basically virtual machines. So you might have a laptop. You may be able to believe, well, I manage this laptop. This is a safe laptop. You don't realize there's 7, 8 images running on that. They're not running all the time. They only run sometimes. And on those, you've got things like Kali Linux, Backtrack, all these advanced hacker tools. And we've seen quite a few of them on my own networks. And suddenly you'll find out one of your machines has been hit by a Metasploit, and it's somebody, well, I downloaded this thing, I went to DEF CON, it sounded really, really cool, so I thought I would smack around my own network. And you'll see lots of Nessus scans, and occasionally you'll find malware running around your network from people who've brought their BYOD machines in, or maybe you've had lax controls. One thing we are saying is machines are becoming less and less locked down over time. So there's a lot of malware on them, and it's not going to change anytime soon. Just having a look at the Ashley Madison one, for those of you who haven't been following the news, it's probably the biggest one of the year, even bigger than the OPM. And on the left-hand side there on the bottom, this is actually the remnants of the first dump. These are all the different files that were downloaded. And literally, you've got all the credit cards, everybody's details on there. This is one that caused the big news The second one and the third ones were to do with all the emails of the CEO. But up in the top corner there, it says nobody was watching. And that was their general view on it. They could move around, go anywhere they wanted. So that would be the great idea of, wouldn't it be good either if you're watching through a sim, but really knowing what you were doing, or if you had some sort of a box, some sort of detection mechanism hidden inside your network, that the moment somebody hits it, it's suspicious, and you've got a major alert that something weird is happening. So, and this is some of the fallout. You've got the Josh Dugar, and you've got a whole bunch of people inside the government. So right now there's witch hunts going on as to who's inside the government, and they've had thousands of military members who are using their military addresses. And now, if you've been following it yesterday, there have been at least 2 suicides as a result of this. So this is a game changer. Like I said, it's the idea of, well, here's a year's worth of credit monitoring. That doesn't repair marriages or bring back lives. And that with the OPM ones majorly change how things are going. And at this point, I'd like to hand it over to Tushar, who's going to talk about a new methodology for threat detection.
Thank you very much, Ken, and thanks everyone for being on the call this morning. Delighted to be here and sharing with you some of the ideas that we have been working on and technologies that we developed to help with this very important and difficult problem that our industry faces. We've been I think the importance of all the different examples that Ken cited have been that the visibility inside the network is very key, and today's modern security infrastructure must account for post-infraction detection and be able to detect very efficiently if something has made it into your network before it can do the kind of damage that Ken described. So I'm going to take just 2 or 3 slides to quickly tell you how we address this issue and the method that we use. And during his conversation, Ken mentioned bear traps. We think the best way to catch something is to put traps. Over the centuries, mankind has always invented a trap to catch something that's difficult to catch. The chart you see on your screen describes a typical security infrastructure as it exists today. You have typically prevention technologies at the perimeter and at the endpoint. So if a traffic comes through your front door, so to speak, you have firewall, IDS, IPS, and some sandboxing technology typically examining the traffic coming through. And on the other side, you have your endpoint devices. And many of these endpoint devices typically have signature-based technology, trying to prevent a known malware from getting in, but they are defenseless when it comes to zero-day attacks or custom targeted attack that is designed for your own, for a particular company. And further, BYOD and other examples where a malware can be loaded on your device before you come to work, and you can carry the bot or APT in your backpack to work, bypassing all the impressive infrastructure you invented in. Once the bot or APT is inside your network and on one of the devices, it is going to, if it's of a serious variety, it is going to look for targets to attack and breach and retrieve the data it's interested in doing that. So in this example, this particular device which is infected is looking for servers and database that you have, and it has techniques to exploit the vulnerability on those servers and services. So what we have done is we have created a set of traps, and basically it's a deception, and we are making the bad guys believe that we have all the good stuff they're looking for. And actually, indeed, we do have all the operating system and services built into our solution. So when the bot or APT gets into your network and looks for where all the good stuff is, we are going to show up, and we're going to make ourselves very attractive to be attacked. And once we attack, we can detect which device is attacking is infected, and we can help you neutralize the threat well before it does all the different things that Ken described in his discussion. So the way we do this is inside our system, we have multiple operating systems. We have actually 3 versions of Linux, 3 versions of Windows, and you can actually bring in your own golden image, and we can help you create a very elaborate deception as you like. Once we are attacked, we obviously immediately notify you with through various mechanisms that a particular device is infected and is launching an attack on us. We let that attacker then continue the attack inside our system to give you the full intent of the attack, the forensics, the TTP, and signature of the attack that then you can use to neutralize the threat. If the attacker tries to go back out once he's attacked our system, we actually don't let him go back out. However, we do allow lateral movement inside our device or inside our solution. And if he tries to go back out, we resolve him into a sinkhole. And all the activities that the bot or APT is doing, we collect as a forensic for forensic reporting purposes and give you the signature to mitigate the threat. In the event you want to do more advanced forensic work, then we can open a external port through proxy from our sinkhole VM and allow the command and control to give directions to the bots and APTs. And that way we can keep recording all the things the command and control is doing. Often you'll find out that the CNC already has a username and password of your executive team and is trying to use those to breach the systems. So that'll be good information to know and good time to change the passwords and usernames. In our sequence of things, we see two types of attackers. First one usually starts with a reconnaissance, and many of the attacks that we have heard about in the last 12 months had this element where the bot or APT got inside the network and then scanned the network to see where it was and where the interesting services and operating systems were located. We have developed techniques to deal with those. And then the second kind of attackers we see are the ones who are more stealthy. This is where the attacker launches itself on one of the endpoints and never does a scan or a ping to hide its existence, but it will steal the credentials from your endpoint through various tools and techniques, and then use those credentials to come and launch an attack. So what we have done at Attivo is develop techniques to deal with both of these kind of attackers. And I will briefly touch on those two. First is we insert ourselves into multiple VLANs, acquire unused IP addresses, and assign them to our system so that when a bot or APT does a scan, we show up as an available target, and we have all the services and things that it's looking for. In the second scenario, what we do is we deploy a small script that is pushed to your endpoints through various mechanisms. And what the script does is it goes and inserts some false credentials, or what could be known as honey tokens, inside your endpoints. And it is not an agent. It goes and writes those things and then gets out of the way. And then once it's out of the way, when the bot or APT infects this device, it's going to find all this information that leads it back to our system to be trapped. So that's a very simple way to describe. I would encourage you to contact our team. If you would like more details, we can certainly do a demo and show you how it all works. The next thing I want to talk about is another very powerful use case of this technique, and that is in both public and private hybrid clouds and data centers. And as we all know, in the data center, it is very difficult to do east-west traffic or lateral movement detection. If you apply traditional methods like IDS, IPS, those are very complex and expensive to deploy because of very high bandwidth and throughput inside the data center. So here again, what we have done at Attivo is to create this technique whereby we are setting the traps and deception inside the data center, and we deploy ourselves as one of the VMs, either in your Amazon Cloud or VMware, and show up as having all the interesting operating system and services that are attractive to the attacker. We also insert some history in other servers. If one of the servers is infected, we would lead the bad guys from there to attack us. And once we attack, we can provide you the full detection and forensics that you're looking for. So it's a very, very efficient way to do this. We are not inline. We don't require a span port. So as a result, we don't require a huge amount of compute power, and yet we provide a very effective way to do detection and forensics analytics to help you neutralize the threat. So along with that, we provide very detailed, comprehensive threat intelligence and dashboard and reporting. We integrate with your various SIMs, various other devices in your network or system security infrastructure. We can feed your firewall signatures. We can communicate with IDS, IPS to prevent such attacks in the future from coming in. So we have a very comprehensive ability to interface with other pieces of your infrastructure. And our technology is very rich from reporting perspective. We provide reports in various formats, all the way from PCAP to syslog connection through IOC and CSV formats. And we can work with you on whatever format and mechanism that you want to deploy to mitigate the threat. We interface with most of your mitigation tools. We chose to do that instead of creating our own because we believe you already have invested in various tools and we like to interface with them. So within the active deception technology is a very good way to go. It's very efficient, very effective, and above all, the biggest benefit of this technology is that we have zero false positives. And the reason we have zero false positives is because we are not looking for any signatures, prior knowledge of the attack, or we're not trying to do any data analytics to figure out or predict what an attack is. We are actually being attacked, and so our information that this is an attack is 100% accurate because our servers have been attacked. And as a result, the quality of the alert our system gives is extremely good. It said one alert will make a difference, and I think more and more as we talk to our customers, we are hearing that there is an alert fatigue. A lot of infrastructure that you invested in is generating a lot of false positives, and what we do is the quality of the alert we provide and the capability to do zero-day attack detection is extremely valuable. Typically, our device will be probably giving you an alert once a month or even less than that if your network is well designed and doing a good job of preventing the attackers from coming in. But we are there if they come in. We are very easy to deploy this. It's non-disruptive deployment. We, again, like as I said before, don't require any redirection of the traffic or span port. We simply insert ourselves as one of the nodes, and through DHCP or static IP input, we can grab multiple IP addresses across hundreds of subnets and insert ourselves seamlessly, and then we can insert ourselves in the endpoints as baits to lead the bad guys to us. And we do all this without interfering with your normal operation of the network or security infrastructure. The normal user will never see that we exist rather. So many of our customers are actually using us for insider threat detection as well, because if they have a bad employee, he's probably going to be led to us and we're going to trap them. I'm going to walk you quickly through a couple of use cases here. So first one is one of our customers where we have deployed our solution in multiple locations. And we have different versions of the product depending on what environment and how many subnets you have. In this particular environment, the concern was rogue NBNS servers detection, and they had 7 locations worldwide, and they wanted to make sure that we were present in every VLAN. So we have installed the products in the network, and all that data then gets consolidated into central management. And depending on the location, they have between 10 to 95 VLANs per location. And so this is very efficient way to provide the coverage across the globe for their company. And it's a level of protection that did not have before, and it's proving to be a very important piece of their security infrastructure now. Another case study was a high-tech company. In this case, they had concerns about espionage and IP theft. And the security challenges included multi-location development, remote access and mobility. All the engineers worked remotely. And they had need for varied device compatibility testing and all different things going on. And they had a lot of third-party subcontractors and vendor access as part of the equation. And as a result, they knew that they have a lot of exposure or vulnerability for bad guys to get in. In this case, we deployed our bot sync technology, which we can describe to you in, if you reach out to us. But they had environment included multiple development labs and possibly infected lab equipment. And in this particular situation, we were able to detect some of the attacks very early in the attack cycle. We detected over 10 infected systems, and the malware dropped a binary payload on our device as a result of us being there. And we provided the signature of that binary payload, and that helped them find and clean up all of the devices that were infected in the network as well. So we were able to capture the lateral movement and infection of bots across multiple endpoints and subnets. And the full IOC and PCAP that we generated helped them remediate their network and shut down this particular threat very early in its cycle before it was able to do significant damage. The next one I'd like to talk about is our financial case study, and in this case, it's a classic data server implementation, and we think this is one of the most powerful use case of our technology. And what we've done here is we have installed a VMware version in their environment, and the environment includes approximately 64 Cisco UCS servers and anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 VMs running in the entire data center. And that constituted about 180 VLANs. There are 3 different data centers, and we have deployed our technology across all 3 data centers and are able to provide a very effective layer of security and detection capability without interfering with the performance of the data center and affecting the throughput. So the efficiency of our solution and effectiveness has been of very big importance to this customer, and we see this trend escalating as people move their networks into, obviously in data center, but from data centers to cloud-based services like Amazon. This is where we can really help provide a layer of security that helps you prevent this kind of attacks and detect them early in their attack cycle. So that's my quick review of how we are addressing some of the challenges that Ken Baylor described in his talk. And I want to again summarize that we believe we come up with a technique which is going to help you mitigate this threat early in its attack cycle. And love to have some Q&A or any other thoughts or feedback.
Great. Thank you, Tushar and Ken. So I do have some questions that have come in through the questions in chat. So some of the things that I have here is, well, let me group these 2 together. So what types of integrations are available for Attivo solutions? So whether SIM or blocking or other integrations like that.
Thanks, Carolyn. So response to that question is that we are working with all different major security infrastructure providers like Cisco, Juniper, McAfee, Palo Alto Networks through their various APIs. We integrate with these other solutions either to provide them the specific IP addresses of infected devices or upload this attack signature that could be used to mitigate the threats in the future. So we have a full set of integration points with a variety of different security infrastructure, particularly all the major providers of security infrastructures we're working with. And we'll be announcing some of these partnerships over the next 90 days.
What type of reporting formats are available from Attivo?
Reporting formats we provide in IOC, STIX, CSV, and full PCAP. And those could be uploaded into your SIM so that you can then use that information to mitigate the threat.
And then other question that I have is, how undetectable is Attivo deceptions? Won't the attackers be able to identify or learn your patterns?
Just to repeat the question, how effective is Attivo in deception, and will the attackers be able to detect our presence? So we have done a lot of work and continuing to do a lot of development in making our deception technology even more difficult to detect. We have a full range of capabilities, all the way from moving ourselves into different networks at different times, taking more or less IP addresses based on what we see as the attack threat, as well as we can actually import your actual servers and services and your actual golden image of the endpoints, so that there is no difference between us and your real assets. We look just like that, and it'll be nearly impossible for anyone to distinguish between us. And then beyond that, we are doing more advanced deception work where we can continually morph and move ourselves so that it's very, very hard for an attacker to fingerprint us and figure out where we are.
Does Attivo plan to support Azure or Hyper-V?
So question is, does Attivo plan to support Azure or Hyper-V? And answer is yes. We right now have VMware and Amazon AWS available. And in the near future, we are working on Azure, OpenStack, and various other formats. And if you have a particular format you need, we can reprioritize ourselves. But all these different formats will be available. Most of them will be available within the next 3 to 4 months. So we already have first two, which is VMware and AWS format, and a couple of other formats will be following shortly.
Okay, great. And this one is for Ken. The question is, have you used Attivo technology, and what was your experience like?
Yes, we've used it inside production networks, and we found a lot of the, first of all, as regards deception, it worked really well. Nobody detected it was present. And we found primarily a lot of malware, and we found a lot of people using VMs to scan around. The good news is we have a lot of background and training in botnets ourselves, and we didn't find any inside there, which was great. But we've also deployed it in other areas where we found more interesting things we're not allowed to talk about.
Great. Well, I think I've exhausted the questions that have come in through our chat. Just taking one last quick scan here. All right. Okay, I think we've exhausted all the questions on the chat today. So I want to thank both Tushar and Ken for joining us on this webinar. If people would like to go into more specific discussion about their needs and environment, we welcome the opportunity to speak with you directly, and you can either give us a call or reach out to us through sales@attivonetworks.com. I want to thank you all for joining and hope you have a fantastic day. Take care, everyone.